Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at a very solid team for the Open Ultra League. I think Walrein Trevenant is probably my favorite core in this meta, and then I chose to go Cresselia on the save swap to have another fighting answer and a response to Walrein save swap, and also to have just a sponge you can sacrifice to just absorb energy and set the other two Pokemon up for success, which you're going to see some examples of how I do that in this video. This team does have some core breakers, mainly Obstagoon and Scrafty. Aurorus can also be an issue, but with energy you can set it up, as you're going to see in this video as well. Against Scrafty, you have to save swap Cresselia. I feel like it's the best way to go about it. Against an Obstagoon lead, yikes. You just sacrifice Walrein, hope Trevenant is good against the backline. But overall, if you don't see those two, this team is very good. And as you see by the title of the video, it did incredibly well for me. Going into the first game, we lead into a Giratina, very good lead for Walrein, but they swap into a Snorlax, and we don't really have a response to a Snorlax, so we kind of have to stay in against it. It's not a Pokemon you see too much in the Open Ultra League anymore, I don't feel, but yeah, they go for a move pretty much immediately, and people just don't tend to want to debuff themselves when they're switch locked. So I call that it's just a Body Slam. Then I go for the Earthquake, which is actually the more energy efficient move after the Icicle Spear debuff. And then I catch a Body Slam on Trevenant. When Snorlax is this low, you can swap in Trevenant because Snorlax doesn't really hit the Trevenant with any of its charge moves. But if it has more health, it's quite uncomfortable because as you're going to see, the licks just get Trevenant quite low still. But I think that's the absolute maximum amount of health you can swap your Trevenant onto a Snorlax with. So they bring back in the Giratina, we go for a Shadow Ball. And they no-shield it. I want to bring my Trevenant as low as possible before I throw the second Shadow Ball to give the Pokemon coming in as little farm as possible if they no-shield this. And they do. And then the Tapu Fini comes in, farms down Trevenant, and we bring in Cresselia. And this is such a dominant matchup because Cresselia is such a beast. And the opponent realizes they're just not going to win the game. They concede. Next game, we lead into Aurorus. Yikes. The way I like to play this is I farm up and then I try to catch the move on Cresselia. They get to the Meteor Beam after 8, so I try to catch after 8, but they don't throw, and instead they counter swap a Trevenant onto my Cresselia. Yikes. Very bad start to this game. I no-shield the Shadow Ball, get off my Moonblast. Cresselia even has play against the Law of the Ghost types, which is one of the reasons why it's so good. But yeah, my opponent gets to the Seed Bomb on CMP. Very nice counting by my opponent to overfarm by 1 here. But I think I might be able to farm the Trevenant down with my own Trevenant before they get to a Shadow Ball. They only overfarm by 1, so they're in 6 now, meaning they're 1 off the Shadow Ball. So I can no-shield this. And now we have energy on both Trevenant and Walrein, which is how you want to beat the Aurorus. Get off the Seed Bomb immediately, because this allows me to no-shield my Trevenant and just kind of sacrifice it. And now I can bring in Walrein. And I make a huge mistake here. It takes 7 for the second Meteor Beam after you throw a Weather Ball or after you throw a Meteor Beam. So I should have not CMP'd here, because of course Aurorus wins CMP. Go for the Icicle Spear as well, and they no-shield it. But they should be 8 away from the Meteor Beam now. It's always 8-7, 8-7, like all the way through. And we take out the Aurorus before it gets to another move. And then they bring in a Virizion. We have a lot of energy. This might actually be doable. Go for the first Icicle Spear. They shield it. Go for the second one. It takes 3 for every move for the Virizion. Like for a Leaf Blade or for Sacred Sword. So they're 1 off back to back here. So we should be able to get to the next Icicle Spear. Go for the Sacred Sword, get to the Icicle Spear. This is not enough to take out the Virizion though. So we kind of have to make a catch. Go for the catch, and we catch the move on Trevenant. Now the Virizion is 3 away from the next move. Can we farm it down before they get there? Yes, we can. And I cannot believe I managed to win that game. That was a very good game. Next game, lead into a Shadow Charizard. Always a tough lead. But it's nice to see it on the lead because none of our back 2 Pokemon want to see it. Go for the Icicle Spear. They no-shield it. And this is so rough because it's so tough if you shield the Dragon Claw. It's so tough if you no-shield the Blast Burn. I go for the shield. It is the Blast Burn. Very nice. Then they swap in Jellicent. And this team doesn't have a hard response to Jellicent. Trevenant is definitely the best response, but down energy and down shields, yikes, they also bait me with a serve as well. It's okay if you have like equal energy and equal shields, but this is not the best situation. I go for the seed bomb on alignment because they were at the Shadow Ball. It takes 5 after you've thrown a serve. So I wanted to get off a bit of damage with the seed bomb on CMP because I knew I wasn't going to get to the Shadow Ball. And now they take me out with the Shadow Ball. Now we've left it in a range where Walrein can overfarm a lot. It takes 5 for the second Shadow Ball as well after a serve. So we go for the Icicle Spear right before they get there. Now we come out with a lot of energy. And the Charizard only overfarmed by 2 earlier, so this should only be a Dragon Claw. I knew they were 4 away from the Blast Burn. So yeah, farm it down. Then they bring in a Trevenant. Yikes for our Cresselia. But we should be able to get off 2 Icicle Spears here. The first one grabs the shield. The second one is going to do a lot of damage to the Trevenant. And now we're going to swap in the Cresselia immediately. Trevenant farming up, and we get to the moves on CMP. Get to off the Shadow Ball, but Cresselia is just such a tank. Super effective Shadow Ball, stab from a Trevenant, no problem. And Cresselia gets off the Moonblast, takes out the Trevenant. Cresselia being a Trevenant counter, confirmed. Next game, lead into Como-O. Good lead. They swap into a Skuntank, and this is where we want to see it. Again, this team doesn't really have a response to a dark type, so Walrein is the best response. I go for the shield, not knowing this matchup well enough. I'm so used to Skuntank being very glassy in the Great League, so I thought maybe a crunch would leave my Walrein in a range where the Skuntank might be able to farm me down afterwards, which would be disastrous, because my backline cannot see the Skuntank when it has that amount of HP. But with this amount of HP, I'm more comfortable letting my Walrein go. But this is where I realized, oh wait, we're in Ultra League. I gotta leave my Great League mindset behind. Everything is just so much more bulky. Get off the last Icicle Spear, and then we swap into Cresselia immediately. They bring in a Shadow Luxray. I want to get off my move after they debuff themselves, but I don't want to let them get to back-to-back wild charge, because then I have to shield in order to get off my move. So I would rather get off my move blast here, because they went up to the 12 sparks, which is enough with the back-to-back wild charge. Now I can just let both of these go, because I generally don't like to shield my Cresselia. Go back-to-back wild charge. Now they don't have any more energy. And I wait out my switch timer because their switch timer is up and mine is not. And I want my cats to become available. They bring back in the Como-O. Not that you can see it because, yeah, we don't talk about this. They go for the Dragon Claw, and I'm thinking if I bait, I'm going to be able to outpace them to a Shadow Ball. So I go for a very, very risky bait here. And they shield it. And now we can get to the Shadow Ball before they get to another Dragon Claw. But it's not enough. But for some reason, they don't get off their move. I thought they had it. I'm quite confused as to what is going on right now. The game is a little bit broken. Maybe they lagged. Maybe they just didn't press their move. Maybe I miscounted. But anyways, we take the win. I think it wouldn't have been enough to KO anyways. It does about 27%. But it would have been close if they got it off. But that is a 5-0 set. The first one, full disclosure, it's only a 4-0. Because the first game was with my Raikou team from before, from yesterday. Next game, lead into a Shadow Abomasnow. This is actually a pretty good lead despite Abomasnow being a grass type, as long as you can shield the moves correctly. But it is just so risky for the Abomasnow to go for a Weather Ball bait because it does no damage basically. So I'm thinking they're probably not gonna bait most of the time. And I call it correctly, shield the Energy Ball. It always takes 7 for the Energy Balls, unless you throw like a lot of moves on Abomasnow, then it might become 6 at some point in the distant future. But yeah, I shield the next move as well, but this is only a Weather Ball, meaning they're 4 away from the Energy Ball. Can we farm them down? Yes, we can. You saw I pressed the Cresselia. I was going to catch the Energy Ball if they got it. But we get the full farm down, and they bring in a Trevenant, meaning they're quite weak to Walrein in the back. Otherwise, they wouldn't bring in a Trevenant onto it. So I'm thinking I want to save my Walrein for later. So I actually try to catch a move on my Cresselia, preferably the Seed Bomb. And I just plan on completely sacrificing it so I can save my Walrein for later. Then they farm up a bunch more energy on Trevenant, so it's going to be quite threatening in the back, and then they bring in Gliscor. Go for the first Grass Nuts. 3 Grass Nuts is enough to take out Gliscor, which is why I'm going for it, or Shadow Gliscor at least. Plus the Psycho Cut damage. They farm up, and they have so much energy. And at this point, I'm thinking that Trevenant is going to get to a move that's going to be able to take one of my Pokemon out. And they get the boost, of course. So I want to leave both of my Pokemon. It's not going to be able to get to 2 moves. So instead of letting the Gliscor take one of my Pokemon out, I think it's going to be able to get to an Earthquake on my Walrein if I bring it in. I want to leave both of my Pokemon with some HP, so the Trevenant has to get to 2 moves in order to win this game. So I actually bring in my Trevenant here to take some of this energy. And they go for the Night Slash, and now I have health on both my Pokemon. Bring in the Walrein to take out the Gliscor. Now the Trevenant has to get to 2 moves instead of only 1 move in order to take out both my Pokemon, and that's just not going to happen when it has this amount of HP. It was going to be able to get to a Shadow Ball on my Trevenant, which does about 91%. So I think that was a pretty good play. Next game, lead into a Trevenant. This is a good lead because, well, the Trevenant is not in the back, most of all. This is also a bit of a tricky lead because in the 2 shields, it's IV dependent if the C-Bomb is enough to take out the Shadow Walrein. So I don't like shielding the first one. Go for the Icicle Spear. They get to the moves at the exact same time, so I don't want to CMP tire them because Trevenant is always going to win it. I also go for the Icicle Spear immediately here, thinking that if they shield it, I want to swap out, not risking my Walrein getting farmed down, and then I want the Trevenant to have as little HP as possible when I swap out. But they do decide to let their Trevenant go, and then they bring in a Skuntank. And once the Walrein is gone, Dark types are very difficult to deal with this team. Cresselia does put up a pretty decent fight, but yeah, as you're gonna see, the Skuntank is just gonna be able to outpace, and they get to the move on CMP. Very nice counting by my opponent once again. I do decide to let the Cresselia go. They would have been able to outpace me to the next move anyway, so if I shielded, they were probably gonna shield, then yeah, they were just gonna be able to take me out anyways. Instead, I decided to save the shield for Trevenant. They lagged a bit, so I stopped tapping as well to give them back some of the poison jabs. I don't expect people to do this in general. I just like to play the game more when it's on more fair terms. I don't think I gave them enough poison jabs, to be fair though. But yeah, it's tough to make sure you do that when the game is not working. Go for the Shadow Ball, take out the Skuntank. And you know what's even worse than 1 Dark type against this backline? 2 Dark types. Again, perfect overfarm by my opponent. I tried to catch the move as well. They didn't fall for it. And yeah, I don't think this team can do anything against the double Dark backline. Next game, lead into an Aurorus. Once again, I want to try and catch, but I try to catch a 9 instead of 8, and this person decides to throw after 8. Kind of have to shield this Meteor Beam. It hurts a lot. Then they try to catch on their Virizion. So I go for an Icicle Spear, and as I say, the way you want to overcome the Aurorus is by having a lot of energy everywhere. So I save all this energy on Walrein, and by throwing that Icicle Spear, I put the Virizion into a range where I can fully farm it down with my Trevenant. And come out with a lot of energy here as well. So I save a lot of energy on Walrein, and now I'm going to get a lot of energy on Trevenant as well. And Virizion just can't really do anything against Trevenant if it's not running Stone Edge, which this one is not. Take the last Leaf Blade, come out with 100 energy. Now what do they bring in? They bring in a Trevenant. I go for the Shadow Ball immediately, they're probably thinking I might go for the Seed Bomb immediately, expecting the Aurorus, but no. They shield the Shadow Ball, and we don't get to another one. Now bring back in the Walrein, they bring in the Aurorus, bring in Cresselia. Cresselia is a quite nice answer to Aurorus. Of course, don't want to shield the first one, although I am expecting the Meteor Beam, because it boosts their attack, so the next one does even more. I go for the Grass Knot. This doesn't quite take out the Aurorus. And of course, people at this ELO tend to try and CMP tie whenever they know they're going to win CMP. I go for one more Psycho Cut, and then I go for the Grass Knot, and then I undercharge this, leaving the Aurorus with some health remaining, so I can get even more energy on my Walrein, because I knew the Aurorus was quite far away from immediate beam. Now, instead of the Trevenant farming my Cresselia down, I farm the Aurorus down, and I come out with so much energy that there's just nothing my opponent can do, and they just let me farm them down after landing an Ice Cold Spear. Very good game. Next game, lead into Pidgeot. Very good lead. They swap in Jellicent, I swap in Trevenant, and this is just the safe way to play this is just to 2-shield. Most people bait, but some don't. This person actually doesn't. And then you just go Seed Bomb. That is the safest way to play this. So I go for the Seed Bomb. Most people no-shield this expecting the Seed Bomb. But again, you can just get to another one. And in the 2 shields, 1 Seed Bomb is enough. I go for the second one because I don't want to go down 2 shields before taking at least one. And I knew they were at the Shadow Ball here. Decided to shield my Trevenant. But most people, when they make these kind of teams, they have something else weak to Trevenant in the back. And also, if I let my Trevenant get farmed down by the Pidgeot, my Trevenant can't really do any damage to the Pidgeot. It's going to come out with so much energy, and a Brave Bird does about 63% to a Shadow Walrein. So that would actually be absolutely devastating for me if I tried to keep switch there. So instead, I decided to bring in my Cresselia to just, once again, sacrifice it. They go for a Brave Bird, then swap in Alolan Ninetales, and I throw in horrible timing. I've been very sloppy with these timings. Go for the Moonblast. And they get to the Weather Ball. I'm fine with this. The Alolan Ninetales is dry now. It takes 6 for the next Weather Ball, so I can bring in my Trevenant, overfarm a lot, and save my Shadow Walrein for the Pidgeot in the back. Go up to 100 energy before throwing the Seed Bomb. This should take out the Alolan Ninetales. And now the Pidgeot has to Brave Bird me twice in order to take out the Walrein. So that Seed Bomb I have banked is actually going to be quite devastating for the Pidgeot if we get to that point. But I think my opponent just realizes there's just no way they're going to win this, so they concede the game. That's another good game. Next game, lead into a Shadow Alolan Ninetales. Please have Powder Snow. It does. This is generally a good matchup for Shadow Walrein, but it is very close. Again, I'm thinking it is so risky to bait a Weather Ball, so I'm expecting them to go straight Dazzling Gleam, and they do. I also go straight for the Earthquake. And it lands, does so much damage. They bring in a Tapu Fini. I probably should actually bring in Cresselia here. It has a better matchup against Tapu Fini because it's just so much more tanky. And Trevenant really doesn't like this Moonblast. But yeah. Take the Moonblast, go for the Seed Bomb. Should take 14 turns for it to get to the next serve. So I should be able to do 2 more Shadow Claws before it gets to the serve. Then I can take out the Tapu Fini, and I should still have enough HP and energy to get to another move, maybe. Bring in an Ampharos. We do get to the Shadow Ball, and they should grab the last shield, or the first shield, is it? Yeah, first shield. I know what I'm doing. They get off first Brutal Swing. They get the Deny as well. Yikes. Takes 3 for the first one, 2 for the second one, so on and so forth. So they get to another one. I don't like shielding my Cresselia. It's also going to live this, so no problem. And they go for a very good play. You saw they waited 2 turns, and then they caught the move on their Alolan Ninetales. Very disappointed with myself for letting that happen. But the Alolan Ninetales is dry, and it takes 9 for the Dazzling Gleam. So I undercharge the Grass Knot, and then I bring in my Walrein, and I just trust my counts here. This is only a Weather Ball. They only did 8. I think it takes 9 for the first 3 and then 8 for the 4th Dazzling Gleam if you ever get that far. I also go for the Earthquake here, knowing that it was 4 Volt Switches away from back-to-back moves. So I was going to be able to outpace the 2 Earthquakes before it got there. And that is another 4-1. I went 8-1 with this team. I didn't have time to play much more. And I went all the way up to 3494 ELO. That was the last battle for today, and overall I would definitely recommend trying this team out if you're looking for a team to climb with. I've had a lot of success with Walrein and Trevenant in Ultra League in the past as well, and I think Cresselia definitely complement them very well. You can also try out other save swaps depending on what you see in the meta. Other than that, Fun fact of the day, Trevenant versus Crafty is IV dependent in the 2 shields if Crafty goes straight foul play. Of course, if you shield a power punch, that is absolutely devastating. And also in the 1 shield, Trevenant can overcome Crafty with only 2 Shadow Balls advantage, again if Crafty goes straight foul play. So it's actually not as bad as you might think. Good to know. If you feel like you learned something or you enjoy this type of content, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.